Welcome back to the Meeting Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Frampton, the CEO and co-founder of SalesQ, and we have David Zeff here, a special guest, currently the CEO over at Whistle and a former head of sales. David, welcome to the podcast.
Ryan, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
What we do on the Meeting Mastery Podcast is we like to go beyond the LinkedIn profile. If anybody checks out your LinkedIn profile, I think some of the guests here have had some incredible LinkedIn profiles, but I think yours is one of the top ones, head of sales, and then now CEO of a super fast growing outbound agency. And would love to understand a little bit behind that curtain around what sort of helped you get to where you are today and some of the adversity that you've seen over your career on that journey.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, look, LinkedIn, don't believe what you see there. The facts are there, but they're just represented in a very specific way. There's been a lot of challenges. I don't think anyone has achieved success hasn't. I've had 3 exits, one as a founder and 2 as early stage sales hire that built the sales teams at companies that both sold. 2 of those exits were not in my hands, right? I was just lucky enough to be like at the right place. I worked my butt off, but they weren't in, I wasn't CEO of those companies. One was, but the one that was also a very lucky opportunity that came up. Firstly, I think luck is a big factor here. Having said that, I work a lot of hours and maybe that's not a great thing. I know that there are people that figured out how to work smarter. I haven't done that yet. I just keep saying, maybe I can work even harder. So I've learned a lot more lately because I've got people I can delegate to, but that hasn't been the case since, and I've been probably working since I was 16 in like a serious kind of role. People also don't know about all the times that you got ripped off and when you got clients didn't pay or people stole from you, or there's lots of those kinds of things that happen in the journey that you actually can't write about. You can't put on your LinkedIn profile. Oh, while I was building this, I also had to deal with a client who stole from me or a business partner who also did something wrong. Yeah, those things though are super valuable and super important. And as I've grown Whistle over the last 3 years, which has gone really from 2 people being myself and my brother to nearly 90 people, every time one of these kinds of challenges have come up, I've looked at it in 2 viewpoints. One is this is what is happening to me now, and I have to deal with it. And the second is this specific moment is happening to me to teach me something for the future. Because in the future, I'm going to face the same problem again. It might even be more like at a next level of the problem that I'm facing now. For example, when I started Whistle and we lost a client, right? That's like a heartbreak opportunity, like heartbreak thing that happens to you. And you can, okay, one, what do we need to do now to get better? To keep clients. Like in the beginning, we were moving through clients pretty quickly. So obviously what we were doing wasn't good enough. And so, okay, what can we do to improve? And then there was like a future lesson. Okay, this is going to keep happening, right? Your clients are going to be with you forever. So you have to learn how to deal with that, what to learn from it, how to go forward. So we implemented processes like exit interviews, which is a unique thing. So why did you dub me? But you do learn a lot from that if you have the guts to take that. So I think a lot of these things that happen to you are opportunities for you to decide whether you want to grow from that and gain from that or not, or forget about it. But yeah, if I look at my career, there's been many of those. I still don't feel like a raging success. Again, unlike what LinkedIn might show, I'm not talking to you from my yacht. We're not hanging out in my villa in Positano. There's still a long way to go. But yeah, along the journey, there's always something that's going to pop up that you didn't really want to happen to you, but probably grateful that it did.
Yeah, I think one thing that stood out to me that you said was how important it is to learn from your mistakes and to have a process to do that. So for your business, it's been X interviews. I remember when I was selling as an account executive, one thing I did early on was do like exit interviews for deals that didn't close. So deals that died or went with a competitor. I would say, hey, want to reach out, no, I know you're going with our competitor. That's totally okay. I respect your decision. As a brand new seller, I'd really appreciate the opportunity to take 15 minutes of your time just to understand where I could have improved, where our product could have been better. And that self awareness that I built from having those conversations has been huge. And now starting my own company, I'm doing a similar thing. So I think we always think of things in a company context, but you can take a lot of the tactics that your business that you're working at is doing, like Whistle, like SalesQ, some of the biggest SaaS companies out there are doing, and really say, like, how can I apply these mechanisms to learn in my actual day to day role, whether that's a head of sales, a director of sales, or an AE BDR for sure.
I always felt that sales was a training ground for entrepreneurship because it's a job where you actually have the ability to set your own pay.
Mhm.
Very few of the roles have that. And you have clients and you learn how to generate new business and make, if you're good, maintain those relationships and generate referrals. And like you said, learn, why didn't I win this business? And you have none of the risk. You still get your salary. You're not the business owner. So I always, in every first interview that I had for a sales job, they always said, what's your motivation? I said, I actually want to run my own business and I'm coming here to, yes, make you and I lots of money, but I actually want to learn from you because I always went in early stage companies. I want to learn from you how you do it so that I can apply it one day. And that was the truth. I did that at Graduate, at Burbit, and Exceed until I figured out, okay, I think I know how to close deals now. I've closed hundreds of them. Now it's time to do that for myself and build a real business. So totally with that. And I think if you don't have to have that entrepreneurship element to your personality or to your interest, but if that is interesting, then sales is probably the most important skill set that you can develop to get there.
100%. I'm curious, when you have those conversations, like I'm sure a lot of folks that are listening are currently going through interview processes. They're thinking about what to say and what not to say. I've always been super candid and honest during interviews that I've done on both sides of the table. I think some people listening might say, but David, should I tell them like that I'm going to start my own thing after? Is there any risks with that? What I have my opinion on it, but I'm curious, like, what's your take?
The first thing I'll say is it depends where you're interviewing, it depends what you're interviewing for. If you're interviewing in a Fortune 500, they're looking for someone that fits a very specific mold, and presenting anything that's going to be outside of that mold is you got no chance. Like would not succeed in those interview processes. I know that I'm good for an early stage company that is needing someone who isn't afraid of chaos. In fact, that actually enjoys that. Enjoys, cool, we're got a new product that's half ready. Go find some clients that might want to buy it. That's cool, right? I find that fun. So I think you got to know where you're interviewing. The other thing I'll say though is, at the end of the day, they're getting you, and you are a person, and you're not a machine. So whatever elements of your personality you're trying to hide in the interview process, they got to become clear 3 to 6 months in. You can hide something maybe for a few weeks, but at some point they're going to find out, oh, this person keeps coming up with all these ideas and not just accepting the status quo. They have this entrepreneurial spirit. What do we do with this? If they're going to try crush it, you're going to leave. And so they don't have a way to foster it, and you didn't find that out in the interview process. I'm using entrepreneurship as an example. Then that's on you. You should have brought that up so that you know that where you're working at is a place that you're going to grow and develop. People ultimately leave companies for kind of a few key reasons. Either they're not getting compensated well enough compared to the work that they're doing or the value they're bringing, or they're not being treated well, or there isn't an opportunity for growth. So if you aren't trying to flesh that out in the interview process, or the answers are quite opaque, and you ask, oh, so what's career progression like here? And they're like, we'll see. If you don't really know, then it's going to come out at some point. You're just going to, and if I look at so many of my friends who work specifically in SaaS, they are just every year and a half, it's a new job. And you're going to be working for hopefully for decades. Like, how many companies are you going to go through here? There's just like a point where it's going to get exhausting though. So that's how I feel. Ideally, if you can flesh that out in the interview, find a good company that you can work at for years, to be honest, and build a real career. Great. That's what I would recommend, but each to their own.
Yeah, I think when you look for a role, specifically in software sales, you want to look for the right vehicle to get in that's going to propel you to where you want to go. And if your boss or potential boss isn't directly on board with that out of the get go, then that's not the right vehicle for you because you want someone that's in your corner cheering you on and even helping you make that transition. Like when I resigned from Hypercomply, my last head of sales role to start SalesQ, my boss helped me do it. We had a conversation for a couple months and like he knew my motivation going in. So then when we left on really good terms, now a lot of the contacts that made that business successful are helping make this business successful. So
Yeah.
you want to think of it not from hiding something, but more so trying to find that mutual relationship that's going to help them propel their journey and you propelling your journey. And even from the hiring manager side, a lot of times when I'll ask someone like, "Hey, like, so where do you want to go after this? What do you want to do?" You hear these super fluffy answers, and you're like, "I don't really know this person's true motivation. Should I hire?" And it's actually a doubt. Where if someone says, "Hey, I know my friend Peter May when he started at Vidyard when I was an account executive, the hiring manager Evan told me that his original motivation is he wanted to quit in 2 years to open up a rock climbing gym." And
That's
the
cool.
certainty that brought the hiring manager was incredible. He's like, "This guy's being completely honest with me. I get it. He needs cash to do that. Let's go. Let's do it."
Yeah.
But a lot of people would have been like, "Oh, I don't know if I should say that."
Yeah. I also would say another thing, just while we're on this point, is currently there's a lot of people that are probably interviewing because there's a lot of layoffs,
Yep.
and a lot of people are probably acting quite desperate in that interview. And it's like anything else. If someone seems confident, you actually lean in, right? So if you're going to be in that interview, listen, I really need this job. You actually automatically create a push from whoever you're interviewing with. So I think that's the other thing is like being very, if you're going to try and present a whole facade of something that you're not, and that's already going to take away any confidence that you have. I think it's just going to hurt you. I think if you can come in very confident, very clear about what you want, what your expectations are, where you want to go, what you're hoping to achieve, what you expect to get paid, what you think you can bring back, you've got a good shot. And the interviews that I've been successful in actually are the ones where I've managed to flip it over and actually interview them more than they interview me. Not like, why do you want me here? But pretty much, right? On that level. Like, hey, I know what I've done. I've got this great resume here. Of course, lots of deals, brought in lots of money for the previous place I've worked at. What are you guys going to offer me here that I can, that I'm bringing my best to the party? What does this look like for me from your end? And the right kinds of companies love that and are with that. And the wrong kinds will reject you. So that's okay.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I think would be relevant just during this time when there is so many layoffs is a lot of folks are probably wondering, should I talk about that I got laid off or that I got let go in my last role? Should I try to hide that and keep on my LinkedIn profile that I'm still there and then try to parlay that into a new role? My biggest thing is I know I've hired several people at least that were let go from their previous role and not even laid off, like just straight up let go. And they have been some of the most successful hires that I've ever made. And the reason is they didn't hide that. They just straight up said, "Hey, I was let go from this role. These are the things I failed to do. And this is where the misalignment started. I'm not going to do that in this role. And this is the evidence that I have around why." And when someone comes into an interview process like that, it gives you so much more conviction that again, you know who you're hiring. I think the biggest thing that you're touching on a little bit too, in the facade language is like show your true self because a hiring manager, it's all about certainty. It's just like a sale. It's like, how can I increase the certainty that I know who I'm getting? And if I know who I'm getting, I have ability to do a bet on that person. If I don't know what I'm getting, I have that reluctancy.
Yeah. I don't hire people directly anymore. We have an HR department that does it. It's a weird place to be because, like, like the other night, I met 6 people that we hired, and I was like, all right, what are you guys going to do here? Which is cool. But in the beginning, whenever I would interview people, I looked at two key things. One, are they confident? Can they actually deliver? And let's talk about their track record. Let's get some sort of sense of where they're at. The second is, do I actually like this person? Could we get along? Because I'm going to hopefully work with this person for a while. And when you work with people, that means you see them every day. Like 80% of your week is spent with work. And to be honest, with the office now in our pocket, maybe more, right? So you're going to want to be like with people that you like. The coolest thing about opening your own business is that you get to choose your customers, but more importantly, you get to choose your own team. When you work with somebody else, when you're hired, You are just put into whatever the team is, and you have to try to figure it out how to fit it, who you're going to work with well, and how you're going to deal with people that you don't really get along with so well. When you open your own business, you pick your own team. It's like the greatest thing ever. Again, I just would struggle to hire someone who I felt wasn't genuine, and with warts and all. And I think if the company or the interviewer can't accept that you're a real human being that they're dealing with, they either need to mature up, or they're just not a good fit for you.
Yeah, 100%. Really appreciate that take on just interviewing during this landscape. One other thing that we like to do on the Media Mastery podcast, David, is go over one tip that you feel all sellers should be executing on during their sales calls. Curious, what's on the top of your list right now?
Number one, and anyone in my sales team will know this because I never stop going on about this, is did you set a next meeting? Number one, more than anything else, like when I lose a deal, that is definitely one of the main reasons that I'll lose a deal, because I ended the meeting. I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Send me the material. And then I didn't say, hey, I'm going to send this over to you today. From my side, I need to understand where we're at. Can we set up a call 2 days? Like realistically, let's assume I sent everything over and you love everything I've sent. What's the timeline on the decision? Let's imagine they said 2 weeks. Okay, so if I send this over and we meet in 3 days' time after you've had some time to review, is that enough time for you? They say yes. I say, okay, let's just pop in the calendar. You have to do that. You have to do that because buyers don't have you as a priority. Okay, or customers, right? They don't have you as a priority. They'll wake up in the morning like, oh, I better buy that to tech software from that vendor. Like you're a nuisance, okay? To be honest, we can bluff it up as much as we want, but you think about them every day. Like, I wake up sometimes thinking about, and not even sometimes, all the time thinking about when the contract is out. I don't think of anything else. Every day I'm like, when is that contract coming in? So if I have those next step meetings, there's a great chance for us to touch base, understand what the challenges are, and flesh out any real objections. Because if there weren't any real objections, as soon as the call ended, they would just pay with a credit card, right? If you're going to go to McDonald's and you buy whatever it is, right? A Big Mac, you there, boom, I came for the Big Mac, I got the Big Mac, here's the payments, we're done. When you sell SaaS, let's say, there's no Big Mac experience right there in enterprise sales, let's say. So obviously there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen before they give you that over the details. Meeting is the best way to really understand what goes on. And sometimes you don't maybe they don't want you to record, and they're like, listen, my boss is like really on my back. And you don't know, but trying to discover the stuff of the email. Hey, I sent over the info, where we at? That will just kill it. And I think that's probably the most basic tip, and the one that so many people drop all the time. Even if you look up your pipeline today, if you're watching this, look up your pipeline today, just look at all those deals that you're not sure where they're at, and just ask yourself, like, how many of these have a next meeting? And I bet you there's a whole bunch out there with no next meeting plan. And the other thing is, you'll often get this objection also from the prospect, like, hey, I don't want to set one until I've whatever reason. Oh, actually, let's wait on that. I'll set other material. I've sometimes even said, listen, as a salesperson, one of the key things that I believe in is that we've got to set aside something, because you get busy, people get busy. Worst case, if 2 weeks from now, if a week from now is too early, we'll just move it. But I need to know that like we've got a clear action step forward. I don't want to just send you materials and then have to chase you with lots of emails. And a lot of people actually are like, okay, there's not that much resistance. If they really resisted after that, and then I can listen, David, I'm going to tell you right now, there's no point, then okay, cool, back off, right? You got to listen to your customer. But a lot of the time, you'll still, on that first objection of, oh, let me look at this stuff and see. You just put, hey, listen, I know, but we're going to get really busy. Why don't we put aside a time in a week? Worst case, if you message me before, we'll delete it or move it. It's a good prompt. And when they see it in their calendar, they might even just email you back the answers or the questions or whatever, because they see, oh yeah, no, I've got to meet that guy on Monday. There's a sense of responsibility that they have to you. So that's I would say in a nutshell, but that was pretty long.
No, I think it's so important, the next steps. I find one of the things I've found most useful when someone pushes back on it is I use it as an opportunity to realign with them and say, hey, David, totally okay if you don't want to book a next call. What that typically means, though, from my experience, is that you see an obstacle right around the corner that you just want to go see if that obstacle actually pops up because you don't want to hurt my feelings and you don't want to commit to another meeting. Is that kind of like where we're at? And a lot of times they'll say, yeah, I'm just not sure if X will happen. If you didn't say that would have just
Yeah.
turned into a dead non-responsive.
Yeah.
And completely agree. Ask for the meeting. And if you don't ask for it again, you didn't ask for the meeting. You need to do it at least twice to know if you can actually get it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that is, it's also okay to ask those open ended questions, like you said, to flesh it out. You and I, we both sell to a similar kind of
Yeah.
customer profile, right? So we can be a bit more cheeky and get away sometimes with some of these things. Not everyone has that luxury, but we can always turn to whoever we're talking to is like, hey, tell me really what's going on. What's the process like? I get that you really like this. I understood the other guy didn't seem so keen. What do we need to do to get it over the line? We can have those kinds of open conversations, which you can't always have in every vertical in every industry. But if you can, then do it. That works great.
Yeah. One of the people that I used to manage, actually, Rory, he's a kind of executive at Hypercomply. His favorite line, if someone doesn't want to book next step, is just because speaking to heads of sales a lot of time is what if you were my sales manager, what would you want me to do from here? And then a lot of them are like, I guess I'd ask you to ask me again. Please book the
Yeah.
next step. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you're selling to universities or something like that, you can do that, but
Yeah.
also know your audience, right? Know your audience.
Totally. 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 And yeah, selling to salespeople is a very interesting experience because on the one hand, they're thinking about how you're selling to them while you're in the sale, which is very funny. And you'll often get an email afterwards like, I really appreciated how you did this and
Yep.
this. What a great objection handling move you did. And on the other hand as well, they'll be very honest and direct. So it's a luxury, I think, to be targeting this vertical and working with that kind of client because they're a lot of fun and they're likewise minded, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. David, really appreciate you joining us today on the podcast. Thanks everybody for listening in, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks, Ryan.